Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Leeser, your host for all things giallo, here on The King in Giallo. We are continuing our coverage for the fifth giallo film from Umberto Lenzi, Seven Blood-Stained Orchids, released in 1972. In this video, I will give you a condensed version of the full-length overview video, covering only the cast and crew and the plot of the movie. Then I'll transition into the GialliTally. The GialliTally will contain heavy spoilers. Well, let's waste no time and get right into it. Here is Seven Blood-Stained Orchids Overview. Seven Blood-Stained Orchids, also called Sette orchidee macchiate di rosso, is an Italian and West German co-production released on February 24th, 1972. The film was directed by Umberto Lenzi, who also co-wrote the film, along with Roberto Gianviti. Music is composed by Ritz Ortolani. The movie is an adaptation, albeit an unauthorized one, of Cornell Woolrich's Rendezvous in Black, with its central premise of vengeance-driven murders being lifted directly from the novel. The cast is comprised of Antonio Sabàto as Mario, Uschi Glas as Giulia, Pier Paolo Capponi as Inspector Vismara, Marissa Mel as both Anna and Maria Sartori, Rossella Falk as Elena Marchi, Marina Malfatti as Kathy Adams, Renato Romano as the priest, and Claudio Gora as Raffaella Ferri. The plot of the film begins with a mysterious black-gloved killer who targets a series of young women, leaving behind a half-moon pendant as a calling card. When Giulia, the latest victim, survives an attack, her husband Mario, alongside the police, fakes her death to throw off the murderer. Their investigation leads them to a hotel where all the victims, including Giulia, were either guests or employees years earlier. As the body count rises, the couple must uncover the connection between the victims and the past event that set the killings in motion. But I digress. On to the GialliTally. Spoilers ahead for those of you who haven't yet seen the film. You've been warned. My prediction for the movie's GialliTally score. I neglected to give a prediction in my unscripted movie review video, so I will give it now. I predict between 600 and 650 points. Well, let's begin the GialliTally. Beginning, as always, with the previewing cliches. The repeat offenders are 1 point for actor, 3 for writer, 3 for composer, and 5 for director. Antonio Sabàto was in The Man with Icy Eyes, 1 point. Pier Paolo Capponi was in The Cat o' Nine Tails, The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion, Kill the Fatted Calf and Roast It, and Naked Violence, 4 points. Rossella Falk was in The Black Belly of the Tarantula, The Fifth Chord, and Run Psycho Run, 3 points. Marina Malfatti was in The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, The Fourth Victim, and Run Psycho Run, 3 points. Renato Romano was in The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire, The Fifth Chord, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and Death Laid an Egg, 4 points. Bruno Corazzari was in The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, 1 point, as the killer. Franco Fantasia was in Cross Current, 1 point. Ivano Davoli was in Fargogna Schifosi and A for Assassin, 2 points. Nello Pazzafini was in The Man with Icy Eyes, 1 point. Carla Mancini was in The Devil with Seven Faces, The Blood-Stained Butterfly, The Black Belly of the Tarantula, Cross Current, Oasis of Fear, Slaughter Hotel, The Designated Victim, and The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, 8 points. Fulvio Mingozzi was in Four Flies on Grey Velvet, The Black Belly of the Tarantula, The Case of the Scorpion's Tail, The Cat o' Nine Tails, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and A Black Veil for Lisa, 6 points. Tom Falegi was in Death Falls Lightly, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, Oasis of Fear, The Case of the Scorpion's Tail, and The Cat o' Nine Tails, 5 points. Nestore Cavaricci was in The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, 1 point. Marissa Mell was in Devil's Ransom and Perversion Story, 2 points. Umberto Lenzi wrote Oasis of Fear and Orgasmo, 6 points. Roberto Gianviti wrote A Lizard in a Woman's Skin and Perversion Story, 6 points. Ritz Ortolani composed for So Sweet, So Perverse and Perversion Story, 6 points. And Umberto Lenzi directed Oasis of Fear, A Quiet Place to Kill, So Sweet, So Perverse, and Orgasmo, 20 points. Cliché points for the title, 7 Blood-Stained Orchids. Contains a number, 5 points. And contains the word bloodstained, 5 points. First look, 25 points for the Italian director, and an additional 15 points for the movie releasing during the golden age of giallo cinema. And when you look at that, it is plot o'clock. We follow a gloved figure driving around the city while the credits roll. Urban locales, 2 points. G is for gloves, extra points for them being black, 10 points. The driver creeps around the back of this building. K is for knives, 5 points. Art featured, 5 points. They creep through this home and attack their sleeping victim. In all honesty, I have no clue how they killed this woman. The camera focuses on a photo of a much younger woman, presumably the daughter. Cut to streetwalkers. The woman from the picture sees a car pull up and seizes her opportunity to land a customer, but she enters the killer's car. Elsewhere, she undresses. N is for nudity. Extra points for someone being nude during their murder, 10 points. First person POV, 5 points. And the killer's identity is hidden due to the framing and editing, 2 points. The woman is beaten to death before her killer places a half-moon pendant in her hand. Odd clue, 5 points. Extra points for art for it being central to the plot, another 5 points. The police arrive on scene the next morning. No ID on the woman yet, though they know her street alias, Toscana. Z is for zoom, 5 points. Inspector Vismara takes the pendant and orders Lieutenant Palumbo to investigate the woman's nickname. Cut to Giulia. F is for fashion. Extra points for a character working in fashion, 10 points. I'm jumping the gun there, but you'll find out her fiancé Mario is a wealthy clothing designer. Giulia is preparing for her wedding to Mario. The phone rings. T is for telephone. Extra points for the killer making a call, 10 points. The call is for Giulia, but the caller hangs up as soon as she speaks. Mario, also the clothing designer, enters. He dismisses Giulia, stating there was a strange call, and they mention him being at his bachelor party later tonight. Later at an art gallery, the killer calls and asks for Kathy Adams, whom they learn is indeed here, and so they hang up. The killer drifts around, and we see Kathy take the phone. Kathy, the artist from the gallery, comes home, gets comfy, and tends to her animals. Animals featured, pet cats, 2 points. Kathy pours out one of 3 saucers of milk, but hears a sound in the other room. The door is wide open. She locks up and changes. Mewling summons her back, only to find the cats are lying on the ground, with 3 saucers now poured out. Okay, now, we don't see the ultimate fate of these cats, but I am assuming they are poisoned to death. So let's add animals killed, 5 points. Kathy returns to her studio and finds her new painting sabotaged with red paint, almost like blood. E is for eyeballs, 5 points, and extra points for Z is for zoom, for a zoom on eyes, 5 more points. Kathy tries to telephone for help, but is attacked and strangled with the phone cord. Extra points again for Z is for zoom, for a zoom on a dead body, 5 more points. Vismara and Palumbo are contemplating the possible connection between the 2 victims. I think you mean 3. Cut to Giulia and Mario on a night train. He puts the moves on her, but she'd like the window closed. He can't. And so he leaves to grab a bite and to get the conductor to help him with the window. After a moment alone, Giulia is attacked by the killer. She is slashed. Extra points for K is for knives, for the blade being bloodied. 5 more points. The conductor comes running, which causes the killer to flee. We are at a funeral now. Funeral scene, 2 points. And P is for priest, 5 points. The police snap photos of the men in attendance. Later, they review the photos with Mario. He clears up mostly all of them. This is a dead end. Vismara asks Mario when he met his wife. Q is for questions, 5 points. Exposition dumping, 2 points. Vismara suggests the possibility that in the past, Giulia had gotten mixed up with the other women, which Mario rejects, saying there was no half moon left with her, but Vismara states because the killer had to flee. But They sent one to Giulia through the mail. The police visit Giulia in the hospital. They mention it is good that the killer assumes that she is dead for now. Giulia is questioned about the other victims and recognizes Ines, the sex worker, claiming she used to work at Giulia's hotel. She was a good girl, but a bad maid, and her boyfriend at the time, one Giovanni Rao, had stolen from the hotel and Giulia had ousted him to the police. Giovanni is being interrogated now. He admits to knowing some of the women, but denies being present at any of the crime scenes. He is aggressively asked, but cannot recall where he was. Y is for yelling, 5 points. Extra points for Q is for questions being yelled, 5 more points. A is for alibi, 5 points. Giulia admits she doesn't believe Giovanni is capable of murder, but the two decide to leave town until all this blows over. Mario has the half-moon pendant on his keychain and says they should forget about everything, but Giulia suddenly remembers where she's seen the pendant before. In a flashback, she states that an American tourist to the hotel had one on a keychain as well. She cannot remember his face, however, nor name, but knows where he stayed, another hotel. They drive to the place, but it is closed for the season. They next go to the hotel where Giulia used to own, and Mario speaks with its new owner, who relays that all of the staff are indeed new. They are driving back, but make a U-turn. Reckless driving, 5 points. Giulia says that by law, the hotel records should still be there up to 3 years, despite the change of ownership. She was last at the hotel 2 years ago in late September. In the register, they find a page ripped out coinciding with that date. The owner denies anyone having looked through the book, but his wife did find it in disorder a few months back. Giulia says to cross-reference the names on the days before and after the missing page to verify who would have been in that day between them. Among these names, they find Kathy Adams, the artist. They deduce that the killer wasn't interested in covering up, they wanted the list of names. Giulia peruses the list for other familiar names, and she does recognize a few, but notices that all of the names are women, 7 in total. One of the lieutenants tells Mario that Giovanni has just confessed, so the case is closed. We find one of the women, Elena Marchi, now residing at a house for the mentally unwell. She is paranoid. Someone is mentally impaired. 2 points. The nurses presume Elena is crying wolf about someone out to get her. A call is for her. Mario deduces that Elena Marchi will be next, since one woman, Anita Ferry, has passed away, and the other, Anna Satori, is on holiday in Australia. Mario learns Elena is staying somewhere else nowadays, but the woman cannot remember if the address is one name or the other, only that the correct property has a big iron gate. The couple checks the first address, but there's no gate, so they look for the second place. Elena is taken to bed and given pills. Character takes pills, 5 points. She protests to not be left alone right now, but the nurse is fed up with her shit. Outside, the couple find the correct place, and Mario rushes inside. Elena notices the power in her room is out, and the door is ajar. The woman Mario speaks with tells him that Elena now lives at a mental hospital, but she doesn't know the name, then shuts him out. Elena hears the bathwater running. The nurse hears her cry out, but ignores it. The killer approaches, but Elena passes out. The couple parks outside of a mental hospital, and Mario rushes in. Elena is dragged to the bath. Mario cannot be permitted inside unless he is given permission because visiting hours are past. Elena is submerged and drowned. A pendant is placed near her body. Bathtub murder scene, 7 points. Mario and a nurse are coming upstairs, but the killer flees, knocks the lights out, and grabs a scalpel. Extra points for Z is for zoom a zoom on a weapon, 5 more points. Mario advances in the dark, but is slashed. The killer escapes the hospital, being observed by Giulia as they flee. The police are at the crime scene, and Vismara accuses Mario because he was here. He dismisses the couple and warns them to not jeopardize things by getting involved. Palumbo tells Vismara the woman in Australia is due back in a few days. They visit Concetta de Rosa, a teacher, and warn her. She informs them that she remembers the other women from the hotel. While the couple discusses the American man, Mario asks Giulia what reason could a man have for having his meals at a different hotel from the one where he was staying at. Mario gets an idea and goes to speak with one Raffaella Ferri, the husband of the one woman on the list who has already passed away. Raffaella remembers the American's face from when he would share meals with the man and his wife, and recalls how the American was a Protestant, yet was fanatical about attending Mass every Sunday. Ferri assures Mario the man was not Catholic. Mario leaves, but Ferri suspiciously watches him getting into his car, then calls someone on the phone. Mario next goes to a Protestant church and questions the priests about the sketch of the American. The priest does not recognize the man, however. Next, he goes to a Methodist church, but the priest here also does not recognize him, but gives a suspicious look as Mario leaves. A Lutheran priest doesn't recognize him either and urges him to try the vagabonds in town. Italian locales, 3 points. Mario tries asking the artists around town, but no one knows anything. Finally, someone knows who the man is, a friend of Barrett. Mario arrives at Barrett's house, which appears to be a 1970s version of a trap house. Hippies, extra points for them doing drugs, 5 points. Illicit drugs taken, 5 points. Mario speaks with Barrett, who identifies the American as Frank Saunders, but he hasn't seen him in over 2 years since Frank got entangled with some girl. Barrett recognizes the half-moon pendant as Frank's, though. Mario leaves after scribing his phone number on a poster. Vismara is told that Concetta was summoned to a church to meet the priest. We see him and the lieutenant overhearing a recording of Concetta speaking with the priest. Audio recording device, 5 points. They are interrupted by that very priest who comes to tell him that he has books for Concetta, which they had discussed, and there's no need for her now to come to the church. It is a trap. They rush to the church, but it is too late. Concetta is found dead in the confessional with abrasions on her neck and a half-moon in her hand. The news has begun calling the killer the half-moon maniac. Mario is at the newspaper inquiring about Frank's address from his previous subscriptions. Mario drives to the address and walks in. Part of the ceiling nearly falls on him as he ascends the stairs. He searches, but finds no obvious signs of recent habitation. A door slams shut. A telephone rings. The voice on the line tells Mario where to find Frank and gives him an address, then hangs up. Mario arrives at a cemetery and inquires about Frank Saunders, only to discover that the man is dead, about 2 years ago, around the time of all of this mystery. On the grave are 7 orchids stained in red. The gravekeeper says the flowers were dropped off by a poor man. He says the funeral was a dismal affair with very few guests, and Frank died in an American hospital abroad. Airplane. Extra points for the character being seen on the plane, 5 points. Anna Satori and her husband are back from their trip in Australia. The killer watches them deplane. Vismara detains Anna's husband for questioning. The husband informs police that his wife suffered a bout of shock a couple years ago. Vismara says the police will use this fake drug arrest as a cover to give Anna police protection without her suffering an attack of paranoia at the thought of there being a killer out there targeting her. L is for lies, 5 points. The American doctor tells Mario that Frank died in a car accident, but he believes that he died from negligence, from his driver fleeing the scene without ensuring that Frank got emergency help. The driver was a woman. The doctor says that if Frank was given to medical personnel, he would have survived. This mystery woman remains unknown, but she must have fled the scene for some reason. Mario asks to see the medical report. On his way out, Mario catches Raffaella Ferri by his car. Raffaella says he remembers the American's name, Fred Saunders. Mario corrects him and says, well, he's been dead 2 years. Before peeling out, Mario asks how old Raffaella's wife was when she died. He says 27. Mario explains to Giulia he thinks if he told Vismara any of this new information, that they'd just accuse Giulia of the one who left Frank to die. They ponder who could have called and told Mario to find the information on Frank being dead. Perhaps it is the killer trying to throw them off of his trail. Mario assumes Barrett since he left his phone number with him, which is weird because he called a different phone, but okay. Back at Barrett's, Mario bursts in and finds him reeling from a heroin overdose. Mario questions him, but it goes nowhere, although Mario now knows that Barrett was lying earlier when he'd said that he returned to the States for a time. Mario stops by to speak again with the Protestant priest who is giving a sermon. Mario tells him Frank is dead, and he belonged to this church, and his funeral would have been officiated here. He asks for the priest who oversaw the funeral. The pastor checks the record and gives the information to find this other priest. Meanwhile, Anna tries to leave to pick up her kid from school, but the police cannot have her leave and request her to have a different family member pick them up. Weird, because she very clearly did not have a kid before, and if she did, how come they're not involved in her life in any way? It's like she just now remembers that she had a kid. At school, Anna's twin, Maria, is there to pick up little Alessandro. C is for children, 5 points. Maria drops off Alessandro, but stops to pick up some papers for Anna. The killer watches her from across the street. Maria enters the apartment and takes the elevator, but she is attacked. She is knocked down, dragged into a maintenance closet type room where the killer finds an electric drill and stabs the drill bit into Maria, killing her. Mario tells Giulia that despite what the papers say, Anna is alive and her twin was killed. Giulia is tired of hiding, and so she hatches a plan. The police show up and arrest Mario. Giulia runs out calling to him. Her presence is photographed by the reporters. R is for reporters, 5 points. And extra points for Y is for yelling, for a hysterical woman yelling, 5 more points. On the radio, the news reports that Giulia is in fact alive and well. As she wakes up, the phone rings. The killer presumably sets the phone down, leaving the line open. The killer stalks outside. A sound draws Giulia. She locks up the shutters, but someone is in the house with her, and they have a gun. A glass window breaks, and Giulia passes out. Later now, the police, a doctor, and Mario are with Giulia, who rests. Mario laments having accidentally broken the window, which caused her to faint. The whole thing was a trap, but it did not work. The killer had fled the scene. Vismara reveals that the killer made a mistake. They left the line open in order to prevent Giulia from calling for help, but this allowed them to trace the call. They now know where the killer called from. The police show up to Barrett's house and burst in, unlawfully, mind you. Inside, they find the phone still off the receiver and Barrett hanging from the ceiling. The case is now closed. Vismara says that when Barrett returned to Italy, he learned from the American doctor that Frank was killed due to negligent handling in the aftermath of a car accident, and Barrett had hunted down all of the women from the hotel, unsure which one of the 7 was to blame for Frank's death. But he ended up taking his life. Mario brings up the half moon, which is simply chalked up to a maniac's fetish. Mario argues that no severe druggie like Barrett could have planned such attacks, but he is dismissed by the police. They say the confession was his suicide. Anna's husband arrives and celebrates that it's finally over, since his wife nearly couldn't take her sister's death. Mario has an idea and goes to speak with Anna. He reveals that he's Giulia's husband. Then he questions Anna about her traumatic accident 2 years ago, a car accident. He shows her the sketch and asks if she knew Frank. Anna is visibly distraught. Mario flashes the half-moon pendant and accuses Anna of leaving Frank to die. She admits it. He was in love with her, and the two had a forbidden tryst. Anna was already married and with a child, you see, and so when the accident happened, she ran away because she was scared of her husband finding out about her infidelity. I is for infidelity, 5 points. S is for secrets, 5 points. He asks her if she brought the orchids to the grave, but she denies it. He suspects that the real killer must still be alive, and they were the ones who placed the orchids on Frank's grave, and that they must be tied to Frank via the pendant. Anna says that Frank's older brother had given him the half-moon keyring as a gift. She never met him, but she recalls his face from a photo. The man had a kind face, almost bald, a cleft in his chin, and glasses. Giulia is at home listening to the soundtrack from So Sweet, So Perverse, when suddenly the record cuts out. On the record player is a half moon. She tries to make a call, but the line has been cut. She slinks about the house and reveals the killer, the Protestant priest. Extra points for P is for priest, for the priest being the killer. 5 more points. Hidden identity of the killer until the final moments. 5 points. Giulia slams the door in his path and flees out the window as he pursues her. Foot chase. 5 points. Mario rushes home, but nearly gets into an accident himself. Giulia runs from Pastor Saunders. After some cat and mouse, the showdown begins. Giulia is trapped and tries to grab a shovel, but he stops her. Pastor Saunders begins confessing and laying out all of his crazy. Typical 1970s Italian misogyny. Woman is slapped. 5 points. O is for obsession. Extra points for the killer being obsessed. 10 points. The priest admits to killing Barrett to throw them all off of his trail. He begins to strangle Giulia. Mario comes to the rescue. Typical 1970s Italian misogyny. Woman is saved by a man. 10 points. The two men roll into the pool and wrestle to the death. Things go silent. One of the men tries to pull himself out of the pool. It's the priest, but he collapses to the depths. Mario now pulls himself out, and the two lovers walk off as the end credits roll. Real quick, let's add up. Extra points for S's for secrets, for the killer having an impossible to predict motivation. 5 more points. U is for undercover. 5 points. The killer is killed by someone. 10 points. But I'm also gonna say The killer dies accidentally, but since this doesn't quite fit into the 2 categories I have for that, I'll just give it, 3 points. How the fuck did he die? I don't understand that. And that's 7 Blood-Stained Orchids. Yeah, I like it fine. It's nice to see Lenzi tackle the whole killer in black glove style of giallo filmmaking versus the more psychological and sexual manipulation approach he had taken in the previous years. It has a lot of faults, and to me it's not particularly exciting or all that engaging. Still good, but just kind of middle of the road giallo. Let's segue to the GialliTally cliches for this movie. Post-giallo viewing cliches. The reason for the killing. Revenge and psychological trauma, 7 points. The reason for the investigation. Police investigator, 2 points. But because of Mario and Giulia's investigation, we'll add extra points for amateur detective, 5 points. Bonus points. The style bonus. The film utilizes Lenzi's signature style, but more relaxed than it was before. We have some fades, POVs, zoom outs, crash zooms, colored lights, all the typical Lenzi choices. I also like the reflection here, which I'm assuming is real and actually not a water light. Out of a maximum of 25, I will give 7 Blood-Stained Orchids 15 points for its style bonus. Soundtrack. Yes, 15 points. Bad effects. Not really, but I'll give it some for the drill attack. 10 points. Final look. Extra points. The Deadpool, tallying how many kills and deaths are featured in the film. I break it down as thus: 10 points per kill or death scene for the main Deadpool, plus any stylistic kill multipliers, which we didn't add yet, plus the knife kill bonus. We have Mrs. Tamborini, who apparently is killed off-screen with a switchblade. If you say so, internet, fine. Impaled with a knife. 21 points. I hate that I'm giving that one 21 points. Like, it's a stylistic thing. That's where those points are for, but this is easily the weakest kill in the movie. And so it's really obnoxious that it's getting the most points. Ines Tamborini, bludgeoned, 15 points. Kathy Adams, strangled, 13 points. Elena Marchi, drowned, 14 points. Concetta de Rossi, strangled off-screen, 13 points. Maria Sartori, impaled, 16 points. Barrett, hanged, so garroted or strangled, 13 points. And Pastor Saunders, drowned, 14 points. Real quick, I gotta say, there's actually a fair amount of variety of kills in this movie. There's a lot of strangling and a lot of drowning, which is odd. Anyways, extended Deadpool for those other deaths mentioned, but not seen, I'll give 3 points for each. We have Frank Saunders and Anita Ferry, 6 points. Red herrings for the total number of legitimate suspects in the film. 5 points per legit suspect are awarded. We have Giovanni Rao, Mario Gerosa, Raffaella Ferri, Barrett, Pastor Saunders, and the Methodist priest. 30 points for red herrings. Honestly, for me, when I saw this movie, the moment I saw the priest, I knew he was the killer. They gave him too much screen time and were trying to make him look innocuous. Everybody else was made to look sinister. Like, why does the Methodist priest make this face? I mean, I understand Raffaella being made to look suspicious, but in Giallo, you come to ignore the red herrings which the movie is trying to sell you on. And if you're confused why I added Mario, it's because I really do think the movie is kind of flirting with the idea that maybe he's involved. I mean, why does he have the keychain? Why is he kind of telling his wife not to worry about a lot of stuff? You know, the one attack happened when he conveniently left. I don't know. Flashback sequences, 5 points each. We have 1. 5 points for flashbacks. Nudity, I award 5 points for ass, 7 for breasts, and 10 for genitalia. We have breasts, 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 and breasts. 42 points for nudity. Ladies and gentlemen, for 7 Blood-Stained Orchids, I awarded the film an AZ score of 18 out of 26. With the bonus points for these, we have a modified score total of 155 points. And for the full GialliTally score, I award 7 Blood-Stained Orchids a GialliTally score of 649 points. Compared to Short Night of Glass Dolls in first with 969 points, The Case of the Bloody Iris in second with 830 points, and Slaughter Hotel in third with 827 points. 7 Blood-Stained Orchids is around 12th place behind The Fifth Chord. I predicted around 600 to 650 points. I was right in the ballpark this time, so yay to me. But like I say, these points do not mean a movie is better or worse. Please like this video, share it with your friends if they are horror fans or cinephiles, subscribe to The King in Giallo if you haven't yet, and if you have any questions, thoughts, curiosities, or concerns, leave those below in the comments section and I will get back to you. Give The King in Giallo a follow on Instagram and a like on Facebook. Subscribe to The King in Giallo Patreon to see early access to the YouTube videos, exclusive video series that can only be found there, and to generally support what I do. Next time on The King in Giallo will be the overview, unscripted movie review, and GialliTally 4, All the Colors of the Dark, directed by Sergio Martino. Thank you all very much for your continued support, and a special thank you to those who support me on Patreon. This is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time.
Why did you get rid of that message I'd written on the poster?
All right, you've had your fun. Now why
I
the
said
hell don't
stay
you...
out of this!